Imagine yourself waking up not in a bed, but on a tightly packed mat of woven reeds. Just before dawn, the air is already thick. The night hasn't cooled the clay hut much, and outside, a chorus of lowing oxen, creaking carts, and barking dogs begins the daily chorus of the city. You are a brickmaker in Babylon, one of thousands. And today, like every day, will begin with mud. Not just any mud, but the thick, brown, gluey kind, dredged from the edges of the Euphrates River. It clings to everything. Hair, sandals. If you're lucky enough to have them. Most days, you're not. Your feet squish into the warm silt as you work, ankle deep, scooping it into baskets. Straw must be added, chopped and stiff, to keep the bricks from crumbling once dried. It's itchy, fibrous stuff. And when mixed with the mud, it creates a paste that sticks to the back of your hands like second skin. The work is rhythmic, repetitive, and utterly endless. The molds, wooden, rectangular, smoothed from years of use, must be filled carefully. Pack the mixture, pat it down, scrape the excess, tip it onto the ground, move on. There is a quota. Of course, there's a quota. Perhaps you work for a temple project, or for the palace. Maybe you're rebuilding the very walls of Babylon, the ones Herodotus claimed were so wide a chariot could ride along them. But those stories won't help your aching shoulders. There is no shade on the worksite, no hats, no gloves, just the hot sun crawling up over the horizon, and a faint breeze, sometimes, from the canal. It smells of algae and animal dung. But when it brushes your sweat-drenched face, you're grateful anyway. Lunch is a flatbread, maybe dipped in a watery onion stew. If there's meat, it's rare. A stringy scrap of goat, perhaps, or salted fish. The overseer circles, slow, but always watching. He carries a rod, mostly symbolic, but not always. You don't speak, you work, because in Babylon, the walls were high, but laborers were low, and there were always more waiting. At day's end, your body buzzes with exhaustion. Mud hardens under your fingernails. Your legs are caked and cracked. Still, you help move the sun-dried bricks. Now firm, but fragile to the firing pit. Some will break. You'll have to remake them tomorrow. The sky over Babylon turns dusty orange, then deep Indian. Fires crackle across the city. A ziggurat looms in the distance, towering and proud, its steps lit by flickering oil lamps. That, too, was built with bricks like yours. And though you'll never set foot inside it, your fingerprints are already there, baked into the very structure of Babylon. You crawl back onto your mat. The air still, but you are too tired to care. Tomorrow, the mud will be waiting. And so it goes. The rhythm of their lives, a constant struggle. Welcome, you've settled in. The day is over, and the past is waiting. Tonight, we journey far back in time, to a land of riverbanks and rising towers, to the ancient city of Babylon, a place where mud became myth, and where empires were built with bare hands. But don't worry, there's no need to stay alert. Let your thoughts soften, let the weight of the day drift away. Here, in the cool hush of history, we take our time. This isn't the Babylon of loud legends and raging kings. Not tonight. This is the quiet Babylon, the one that baked under the Mesopotamian sun, that thrummed with the slow rhythm of work, worship, and waiting. It was vast, impressive, and not always kind. Together, we'll explore 4 chapters of this forgotten world. First, you'll step into the rough, unpaved shoes of a humble brickmaker, the laborer behind Babylon's grandeur. Then, we'll rise and fall alongside its most powerful king, Nebuchadnezzar, whose name echoes through temples and talis. We'll wander the mysteries of the Tower of Babel, truth, tale, or something in between. And at last, we'll visit the other side of society, the tables of the elite, where wine flowed freely and lions roamed private gardens. So, if your eyes grow heavy, that's just the dust of old Babylon settling around you. Let's begin. Let us now rise, gently, from the muddy outskirts, into the heart of the city, past the kilns and huts, through gates of bronze, under banners embroidered with lions and stars. We enter the palace, and here we meet a man whose name would echo for millennia, Nebuchadnezzar II, king of Babylon. But before he was legend, he was simply a crown prince, waiting. Born in the 7th century BCE, Nebuchadnezzar was the son of Nabopolassar. The empire was still young, raw, like unfired clay. And Nebuchadnezzar, educated in scribal tradition, mathematics, military theory, was shaped to solidify it. He first proved himself in war, not with ferocity, but with precision. In 605 BCE, he defeated the Egyptians at Carchemish, a major turning point. The world east of the Mediterranean shifted, gently but decisively, into Babylonian hand. When his father died soon after, Nebuchadnezzar returned to Babylon not as a warrior, but as king. His rule would stretch over 4 decades, and during that time, Babylon was transformed. Picture the Ishtar Gate, glazed with lapis blue tiles, shimmering even in the dust-choked heat. Lions walk across its panels, symbols of Ishtar, the goddess of love and war. Nebuchadnezzar commissioned this gate. He ordered the streets that led to it. He planned the vast ceremonial procession that moved through it each spring. His was a city not of mud and straw, but of empire. He rebuilt temples to Marduk, the supreme god of the Babylonian pantheon, to Nabu, the god of wisdom, and to Shamash, the sun. But Nebuchadnezzar was not merely a builder of cities. He was a builder of narrative. He wrote inscriptions in stone, where he called himself the restorer of monuments, the favored of Marduk, the one whose hands bring peace to the land. His own words, or at least words written for him, describe his conquests in serene, almost ritualistic detail. He did not rage. He expanded. He did not kill. He brought order. And yet, his conquests were real. Jerusalem was one such city. In 586 BCE, Nebuchadnezzar's army razed its temple, captured its leaders, and carried them into exile, the Babylonian captivity. A wound in history that shaped generations of Jewish identity and sacred writing. For Nebuchadnezzar, it was one campaign among many. For the exiled, it was a spiritual fracture. But even the greatest kings cannot shape time itself. As the years passed, Nebuchadnezzar's inscriptions became more personal, more introspective. Some describe dreams, visions, perhaps a slow shift in mind or spirit. There is a story, not from the clay tablets, but from later scripture, that Nebuchadnezzar lost himself, that he was driven to the wilds to eat grass like cattle, stripped of reason and pride, or something more mysterious. He eventually vanished from record. No fanfare, no final triumph, just silence. Babylon, however, remained. For a while, its temples still stood. Its walls still watched the desert, but the city he had shaped, brick by brick, eventually faded. The empire fractured, the dust crept in, and Nebuchadnezzar, whose name once rang through palace halls and temple courts, was left to history, one of the many voices in the bricks. Like the mud and the kings, it all returns to earth. As the sun dips low behind Babylon's skyline, casting long shadows over clay rooftops and narrow streets, your thoughts may turn to the most enigmatic structure ever linked with this ancient city, the Tower of Babel. You might have heard the story voices once united, proud, building a tower that scraped the heavens itself. But tonight, let's step gently beyond the legend, into the whispers of archaeology and the mysteries still folded into the layers of Babylonian earth. The Tower of Babel is often imagined as a soaring city, its terraces stacked like steps to the sky, reaching for the divine. The Bible's book of Genesis tells of a single language spoken by all, and the people's attempt to build a monument to their own greatness. Then, in response, their speech was confused, scattering them across the earth. But what does the dust say? Archaeologists who have sifted through the ruins of Babylon. Its ancient mounds point to Edimenankia, massive ziggurat dedicated to Edimenanki, meaning the foundation of heaven and earth, was an imposing stepped structure. Its base alone was said to be nearly a football field in size, and it may have soared over 90 feet into the sky. Imagine the size and scale, the sun beating down on baked bricks, shaped with painstaking care, stacked by countless laborers like the brickmaker we met earlier. A monument not just of worship, but of human ambition. Yet, no evidence confirms that this tower ever reached the heights imagined in stories. Time, weather, and conquests have all conspired to reduce its grandeur to scattered bricks and shadowed outlines. But the mystery lingers. Was the Tower of Babel a warning against hubris? A symbol of divine intervention? Or perhaps simply a way to explain the confusion of languages that ancient peoples noticed as their world grew larger and more diverse? Some scholars suggest it was a real building, begun by Nebuchadnezzar himself or his predecessors, meant to physically connect heaven and earth. Others believe it is a myth woven from a mix of cultural memories and cautionary tales. Recent excavations have uncovered layers of Babylonian writings and tablets that hint at rituals and ceremonies performed on ziggurats, a blend of earthly and heavenly significance. Imagine priests clad in robes of soft wool and linen, climbing steep steps at dawn, carrying offerings to altars where smoke curls slowly upwards. Incense mingles with the dry desert air. The city around them stirs awake in a haze of dust and song. Whether tower or tale, Edom and Anki remains a powerful metaphor, a reminder that the past often speaks to us in riddles, half-truths nestled between stone and story. And as you imagine this silent ruin, let the layers of meaning unfold softly, like the twilight settling over Babylon's lost city. As night deepens over Babylon, let us step quietly away from the dusty streets and laboring crowds, away from the shadows of ziggurats and shattered legends, and enter the illuminated halls of the city's elite. Here, in spacious courtyards surrounded by walls of baked brick and plaster, life moves at a very different pace. Imagine soft torchlight flickering against walls, adorned with intricate frescoes of palm trees, lions, and flowing rivers. The scent of fragrant oiled cedarwood mingles with a rich aroma of roasted meats and spiced wine. Tonight, the banquet is underway. Noblemen and high priests recline on cushions, their robes finely woven, dyed in deep blues and purples, colors made from rare and precious dyes. Their hands delicately lift goblets filled with fermented date wine, sweet but sharp on the tongue. Laughter and quiet conversation ripple through the hall, punctuated by the gentle strumming of lyres and the soft tap of dancers' sandals on mosaic floors. Servants move silently, bearing platters piled high with delicacies. Roasted pigeons glazed with honey, platters of fresh figs and dates, bread baked with fragrant herbs, and salted fish caught from the nearby rivers. A lion rests at the feet of a wealthy lord, a symbol of power and prestige, tamed and cared for within these opulent walls. These banquets were more than mere meals. They were ceremonies of status and power. Invitations were coveted, and attendance was a mark of influence. Perhaps, in the midst of these revelries, plans were whispered, alliances forged over shared goblets, poetry recited, praising the gods and the king, stories told of distant lands and past glories. And then there is the Hanging Gardens, one of the 7 wonders, said to have been built by Nebuchadnezzar for his queen, though their existence remains debated. Imagine a garden suspended above the city, terraces overflowing with lush greenery, cascading waterfalls, and the scent of jasmine and roses carried on a gentle breeze. It is a reminder that even in a city shaped by sweat and struggle, beauty and luxury found their place. As the night winds down, the music softens, and guests rise slowly, their footsteps muffled by woven rugs. The contrast between the banquet halls and the brickmakers' yards could not be starker, and yet both are threads in Babylon's vast tapestry, each essential to the story of a city that rose from mud and myth to touch the stars. So now, as the embers of the evening glow faintly, let yourself drift. Let Babylon's ancient rhythms lull you toward rest, and in that gentle fading light, find peace. And now, as our journey through ancient Babylon slowly comes to a close, allow yourself to settle deeper into calm and quiet. We have walked the dusty streets, felt the heat of the midday sun on brickmakers' backs, and heard the echoes of their steady labor. We have stood in the shadow of a mighty king's legacy, Nebuchadnezzar, whose dreams and deeds shaped an empire, whose story reminds us of the fleeting nature of power. We have pondered the mysteries of the Tower of Babel, a monument both real and imagined, a symbol of human ambition and divine mystery. And finally, we stepped softly into the banquet halls of the elite, where beauty and ceremony softened the harshness of life in the city. Babylon was a place of contrasts, struggle and splendor, hope and hardship, the earthly and the divine. As you drift toward sleep, carry with you the rhythm of its ancient life, the steady cadence of bricks laid one by one, the quiet murmur of prayers rising to the sky, the gentle rustle of leaves in hanging gardens that may never have been. Remember that, unlike those who lived millennia ago beneath the hot Mesopotamian sun, you are safe and still now, surrounded by comfort and quiet. Let your thoughts dissolve like dust on the wind, and rest. Until next time, good night.